The Boise, Idaho area has been a top choice for people to relocate to for quite some time now. So much so that over the last decade, we've seen our population up here in Boise, the greater Boise area, we've seen it explode by about 25% just over those last 10 years. There are so many reasons for that, but one of the biggest driving reasons that really kickstarted all of this growth is for a while there, Boise was kind of the secret, last affordable place over on the West Coast. You could move up here and get the same home that you could in California for a third, a quarter of the price and have such a good quality of life. But fast forward to today, where we have seen that growth explode. You all have heard about the housing prices here in Boise just continuing to rise. We've kind of seen that across the country. Is no longer that hidden gem where you can come up here and really just find that much higher quality of life, really increase that disposable income. But even with that being said, we haven't seen the growth change. We still have people moving here every single day. So in this video, I want to talk to you if you're thinking about making the move up here to our area. What is the truth about moving up to Boise here today now that things have changed? I'm going to share with you a few of the top pros and the top cons on what it's like to live up here right now. Hopefully I can cut through some of all the noise that you hear everywhere, with the hope that this helps you kind of get a little bit more context on if this is the right place for you. If one of these pros and cons was kind of your determining factor, have things changed? Are they still the same? That's what I want to get into in this video. But of course, everybody's journey is a little bit different. So if there's a pro or a con or something that you don't hear about, drop it down in the comments and we'll make sure that we address it moving forward. But I want to hop right in, and I'm feeling good today. So we're going to start on the positive front. We're going to talk about the pros of living up here in Boise as of filming this video. And for those of you who have watched my channel at all, you know one of my favorite parts about living up here, and it is still true to this day, is the access to the outdoor recreation that you have living up here in Boise, here inside of town, but also the proximity you have to things just outside of town. If you want to go out and hike, you want to bike, you want to find a place to go out and hunt, we have so many great things just an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours away, to where I truly believe that you can find any sort of outdoor activity that you're interested in just within a short weekend trip. This is something that I could spend an entire video talking about, so check out one of the ones that's on my channel. But some of the things that I always like to highlight is here inside of town, the day-to-day, maybe you don't want to take a weekend trip to go raft the Payette River. What can you do on a Tuesday night? What can you do on a lunch break? Well, here inside of Boise, we have got the Boise foothills, which gives you access to all sorts of trail systems. It really is just right outside, kind of on the north and then the northwestern edge of Boise. And depending on where you live, we're talking about a drive that is as short as 5 to 10 minutes to get to Camel's Back Park if you live down in the north end. Maybe you're over in Eagle and you just want to shoot up north into the Eagle foothills. Everything is just right within your grasp. And then of course located right inside of town, and it actually runs from Boise all the way out to Star. It follows the Boise River. We have got the Boise River Greenbelt. This is one of the main gems about living up here in the area, and we are so spoiled that we forget just how cool it is. But it's a 27-mile green belt kind of following the Boise River on both sides. Sometimes it's going to be paved, other times it'll just be kind of dirt and gravel, but it runs directly through the heart of downtown. So it's a great place to go out for a lunchtime walk. Maybe you just need to go out, take a call, and you don't want to do it in your office. Take your dogs out, take the kids, go for a long bike ride. It is located in such close proximity to the majority of where you would live here in the area that this is something that you want to take advantage of. And then of course, right inside the Greenbelt, you've got the Boise River. So it's a great place to go out and float during the summer. You can go out and fish. Having that run through downtown, again, you just don't get that in a lot of kind of main metro capital cities. A couple other things inside of town that I just want to give a quick shout out to is talking about the foothills. Right to the north, so kind of right between Boise and Eagle off our Highway 55, you're gonna find Ada Eagle Bike Park. This is gonna be a big track for you to go out, ride your bikes, get out in that BMX. It is such a cool thing, and it's continuing to expand as they kind of move into the foothills. And then a little further into Eagle on the western edge, you're gonna have Eagle Island State Park, where again, it is an actual state park. So you pay a little $7 entrance fee, but you can go kayaking. They got a zip line course. In the winter, you can do snow tubing. You can ride horses, you can go on long bike rides, and it's all located right inside of town. And then for those of you that like to get out on the water, we have all sorts of great water and lakes within an hour or two of Boise, but located right here in the Treasure Valley, you're gonna have Lake Lowell out by Nampa. As we talk about some of the things that you can expand out to and take a little short drive and really scratch that itch of whatever outdoor niche you want to, 1 hour from Boise, you're gonna be up at Banks Loman, and this is one of the main places to drop in for whitewater rafting on that Payette River that I mentioned. This is a great place to go kayaking. As you go around the river, you're gonna find little beaches, you're gonna see all sorts of people fishing. But one of my favorite parts about living up here is that we do have all 4 seasons. So you're gonna feel a very distinct summer and winter, fall and spring kind of in the center, which means you get to touch on all of the outdoor activities that happen throughout the year. We've talked a lot about what you can do during the warmer months, and that's just kind of scratching the surface, but let's say that you want to get into more of the snow activities. You want to ski, snowboard, go tubing. Just outside of Boise, about 40 minutes, you're gonna have Bogus Basin. This is our kind of local ski hill. It used to be so small and it has really grown a lot. It's actually rated the #1 nonprofit kind of ski resort that we have in the entire country. In the summer, they're gonna have a little summer concert series. They've added a couple of restaurants up there. They have an alpine coaster. But in the winter, you're gonna find all sorts of ski and snowboard hills. You can go down and go snow tubing. And even just on the drive up to Bogus all year round, you're gonna find some great hikes. Stack Rock is kind of on your way. In the summer, in the winter, you can get out and really just see some of that great scenery that we have, again, right within our grasp. And then if you're okay driving 2.5 hours, you're gonna be able to get up to Tamarack, Brundage, you can get to Sun Valley, more of those traditional actual ski resorts, small towns outside of McCall, Donnelly, and then of course, Sun Valley and Ketchum. One of the reasons why I love all these outdoor activities is it really does feed into our next pro that I wanna talk about, and it's kind of just the overall quality of life that you can have up here. But before I dive into that, I do wanna remind you, I am a licensed agent up in the area. So if you have any questions at all about any of these pros and cons, if there's something that I missed that you have a specific question on, all of my information is down below. I'd absolutely love to help. And if you want, shoot me an email and I can send you over our free kind of Boise area guide that shows you what it's like to live up here, what each of the towns have to offer, things to do, etc. Help you get a little bit of context of what this place really can be like. And of course, hit that subscribe button down below. That way you're the first to know everything you need to know about living up here in Boise. But getting back into that second pro, we're gonna talk a little bit about the quality of life and just the slower pace of life that you're gonna have here compared to a lot of those larger cities that you might be coming from or you might be comparing Boise to. Even with this insane growth that we've had that I'm gonna touch on a little bit later, spoiler for one of the cons, we still have relatively such low levels of traffic. When you hop on the forums, you come up here, you talk to somebody who's been here for 10, 20 years, somebody who grew up here, you're gonna hear people all the time complaining about the traffic, how bad it's gotten, Eagle Road, the highway. And I'll be the first to admit that there are times throughout the day, Eagle Road in particular, oh my gosh, that is just gonna lengthen your commute a little bit. But if you're coming from somewhere that has any level of high traffic, it's going to make you laugh. Up here, if you have a 20 to 30 minute commute, that's gonna feel pretty long compared to some of the people in your office. And that's not even getting into the 45 minutes that it might take from certain areas in the valley. That's about as long of a commute that you can have unless you're really starting to live on the outskirts. And to me, that sounds absolutely horrendous. So yes, that would be too much traffic for me. But if you're coming from somewhere like outside of Los Angeles, anywhere in California, really these bigger cities, it is not uncommon. And if you're going through this, you know, you're feeling exactly what I'm putting down. It's not uncommon to have a 1-hour commute each way, 2 hours each way. That is not gonna happen up here. And our traffic is still at such a manageable rate that if you really do wanna be within 10 to 15 minutes of your job, of your kid's school, whatever it is that you're commuting to, we're gonna be able to find you a ton of great options. You're also gonna find up here, because we are still a smaller area, so the Boise Metro area, kind of the Treasure Valley, we still haven't hit 1 million people. I think as of filming this video, we're right around 800,000. So this naturally is just gonna lead to a closer feeling community. If you're living out in Eagle, where the population is 30,000, Star, where you're closer to that 14,000, it's gonna be easier to really know the people that you're going out to breakfast with. You're gonna see people over and over again. If this really excites you, we have a couple of those options. If it scares the crap out of you, you might wanna have a tight enough community that you know who your kids are hanging out with, you know who's going to school there. But you also want to be able to go out and have breakfast on the weekends. You want a few different options. You want to be able to fade into the distance and not always run into the same people over and over. We have feels like that all along the spectrum. Of course, Boise, gonna have the most people, so it's gonna be a little bit easier to kind of fade into the crowd. Eagle Meridian, which is where I live, it's kind of right in the center. If I'm going out on a Costco run on a weekend, I don't really want to talk to every single person that I know around town. So it's really acceptable. Throw in my AirPods, listen to the podcast, kind of mind my own business. But you always have to remember that this is a place where people are going to say hi to you. You are going to make eye contact. You're going to smile. This isn't the place where people are just completely standoffish. So we just want to make sure that we find the right mix for you. A few other things that always come up with the kind of quality of life that people really like up here is we have very low crime rates kind of all around our valley. Make sure to do some of that research on your own, kind of look up the stats, make sure that you're comfortable with where you're at. But when we're looking at it relative to a lot of areas, we almost always come out on top. Our city, even downtown, is extremely clean. You're going to have very clean air. people come up here and they talk about how good it smells. There's no weird smog, anything like that. And then if you're coming from an area that's dealing with a little bit of a larger homeless problem, you're gonna notice very quickly here that our homeless population just isn't as apparent. You're gonna be walking through downtown, you're not gonna see all sorts of people everywhere, which I know is a huge issue for a lot of people, so that'll give you a nice comfort feeling. And finally, even though I opened the video talking about how we are no longer that secret kind of affordable paradise that people fell in love with, our cost of living up here is still much lower when you're looking at it relative to where you might be coming from. If you're coming from one of those larger cities, you're still gonna feel a nice quality of life change, kind of that standard of living. You're gonna see it on the property taxes, you're gonna see it on sales tax, just overall the cost of your utilities, groceries. We are a pretty solid place to live when we're talking about the affordability, but again, for all of those locals that's out there, it has gotten more expensive. Everywhere has. Look at it relative to where you're coming from. Whenever I talk about money, I talk about wages, cost of living, everything there. I'll always tell you to do some of that research because there's a ton of great calculators online where you can kind of plug in what do you do for work, where you currently live in, where are you planning on moving, and it'll kind of spit out what you should be expecting. More on that to come a little bit later, but definitely do some of that research. Make yourself feel comfortable with what you're getting into. And then touching back on that sense of community and the overall friendly people that you're gonna have here, this is a great part about living up here in the area. I talked a little bit about the level of community that you can kind of expect depending on where you choose to live, but I do always like to throw in the note here that because of the size of our area, because we aren't this massive spot, if you truly want to find your tribe, you want to find that community that is just your people every single day, we are an area where you have to work for this just a little bit more. It is there, it is ready to be grabbed, but it's not gonna kind of just happen on accident the way that it can in some of those larger cities. And then whenever I talk about the friendly people up here, you'll see it in the forums, you all have probably read it. People are always worried about how are the local Idahoans gonna react to me relocating up here. I talk about this a lot on my channel, so feel free to continue to dig in, but this is not something that I would worry about all that much. Something that I was gonna touch on here in a little bit, but I'll just throw it out there, is even though our population has grown by about 25% in a decade, estimates are that 80 to 90% of those are relocators. So as much as I'm not telling you to move up here and just rub it in people's faces that you're coming from somewhere else and you want to bring everything that you want, that big myth that everybody's bringing what they're leaving with them, I do believe that for the most part, you're going to run into people that are extremely happy that you're here. They want good people up here. And you're also going to find very quickly that a lot of people relocated here at some point, even if it was 20, 25 years ago. They moved up here, they saw what a great place it was to live, and it's a relatively normal thing. No matter when people relocated, they want to move up here and they almost want to shut the door behind them so that nothing changes after that, and that's just not how it works. So a little bit of a tangent, but don't get caught up into that. Don't be too scared. If you want to change your license plate day one, go for it. None of that stuff hurts, but those unfriendly people, they're going to be the loud ones. It's not going to be everyone. And finally, getting back to one more pro, because this is a question that I get a lot. This is a very different place to live than it was 10 years ago. Financially, kind of the cost of housing, all of that. That was a great time to move here. You were ahead of the game. Things have definitely changed. But this is not a place where you have kind of missed the boat. You are still early enough here that you can really fall in love, see how everything continues to grow, get the financial impact of a growing economy. Because even though we have exploded, we still have so much room to grow. There is so much growth coming to our Treasure Valley area over the next 10, 20, however many years. So if this is something that you're worried about, don't be. This is still going to be a place that is just a fantastic place to live that people are going to look back on and just say, okay, I wish I would have moved in that time. Now let's jump straight into the cons and really focus on that side. I know I've touched on a couple of them, but let's dig in a little bit deeper because some of these cons have always kind of existed up here, but some of them are due to how things have changed. And I'm the type of person, I want you to know exactly what you're getting into because nothing's worse than having somebody move up here and they just immediately regret their decision because they had wrong expectations. They thought they were getting into something completely different. So let's get started with the biggest one, the thing that has changed the most, that growth and some of the issues that you're gonna have to deal with it. Like I said, we've seen our population over the last decade grow by about 25% here in the Boise area. This, of course, is leading to some issues as things start to grow. A lot of this stems from our cities just were not ready. Some of the cities were totally fine with the growth. They just were not prepared. They just had horrible plans. We also have a lot of cities that really didn't want the growth to come, and they kind of resisted it for a long time, which really led to kind of amplify a lot of the issues that I'm going to talk about because growth is coming whether people want it or not. We might as well be prepared. But some of the big things that have come up with this growth is we have seen traffic go up quite a bit. You're gonna see during rush hour that the highway gets a little bit more backed up, north and south, getting from Eagle to Meridian, Cuna to Meridian. It's gonna take you just a little bit longer. You're gonna notice just an increase in people than you would 10 years ago when you're going around downtown. You're just out and driving on a Saturday. Again, I stand by what I said earlier in the video. If you're looking at it compared to where you're coming from, it probably still feels really good, but it is something that has changed. Another thing that we've noticed has started to change is that small town feel, you can still find that in Middleton. You can find it in Star and Cuna a little bit, Emmett, but you used to be able to find it in a ton of different places around town. And we are starting to see that small town feel disappear just a little bit. We have also seen some growing pains in the infrastructure that is available for these cities. We saw it a lot with Meridian. Star has been a huge one. You're gonna see it with the roads. They're still trying to catch up with some of the construction, utilities, wastewater plants. There are a lot of things that the city is the one that kind of has to plan for them into the future. And again, they just weren't ready, or they were a little bit hesitant to be ready. So now we're having to play catch up just a little bit. And one of the ones that I'm seeing the most right now over in Eagle is just schools up here. We're starting to see that schools are just getting fuller and fuller. So we need more schools. We need a middle school, high school. Star right now, they still don't have their own high school. So they're still sending all of their kids over to Outweigh, the new high school over in Northwest Meridian, or over to Eagle High, which has already been a little bit full. Now, the crazy thing is it might be a little bit surprising, but those schools are still rating very high. People really like sending their kids to them. So if we can figure out a way to get some more schools up here and lessen that burden on each school, that will be absolutely fantastic. But as the growth comes, if those schools don't come, that's just something that you want to keep an eye on. And then of course, we've seen housing prices just completely skyrocket. Over the last decade, it is pretty common that you will see that home prices, every single house has basically doubled in value. Our median home price for the entire valley right now is going to be right around $500,000 to $525,000. There's going to be some areas where that's much lower, kind of into that mid to high 300,000s, and then there's going to be some areas that are up towards that 800,000. But that is very different than the first home that I bought that was in the 200,000s. So like I said, this is no longer that place where you just come here and you just get the most affordable thing that you could ever picture. But if you are coming from somewhere that's a little more expensive, we still have people moving up here and they are getting a lot more bang for their buck. And like I said, with the growth to come and all of these things, people still love living up here. They're still watching videos like this because they want to move here. This is a place where you could really set your kids, your grandkids up for that accessibility to potentially buy a home down the road a little bit better than you can in Southern California, Seattle, whatever. And then one con that I always like to point out is our job market up here. It is doing very well. We are having a lot of businesses move here. We're starting to see more and more jobs, more niche jobs kind of starting to pop up. But it should be obvious with our population. But when we're comparing ourselves to those really large metro areas, the job market kind of diversity, all of the different types of jobs, the number of them, everything there, it's just going to be a little bit more limited here. But then the big thing with our job market is that the wages up here, they are not going to compare very well from where you're coming from if you're coming from somewhere that has that higher cost of living. And just across the board, considering how much housing has gone up, how much growth we've seen, cost of living, etc., our wages up here need to figure out a way to catch up. So this is that part where I remind you, do some of that research, look up some of those kind of costofliving.com, payscale.com, salary.com. There's so many out there, but plug in kind of what do you do for work? Where are you moving from? You're moving up to Boise, just use the general area. See how that salary might change, but then make sure that you look into the cost of living. How does all of that change? Because LA is the best example. There's a chance that moving from LA, your salary might be cut in half moving up to Boise. But then when you factor in the difference in the housing prices, the difference in taxes, the cost of living, groceries, utilities, etc., you're still coming out with a net positive. So even though you are taking what, to be honest, also can feel just like a big ego hit in that salary that you're bringing home, your standard of living and that disposable income, it may actually go up, which is a very weird situation, but make sure that you dig into the entire situation. And then finally, the last con that does come up, and this has been here forever, this has nothing to do with the growth. We do have potentials for those Boise inversions. So in the winter, kind of in the springtime, fall, they can happen all throughout the year, but that's kind of where you see them the most. You'll see the cloud cover up here just kind of sandwich in, It'll stay there for a couple of days, a couple of weeks, where we just still have sunshine shining through, but you're not gonna see any blue sky. This can really have a negative impact on the air quality up here. So even though we have very clean air most of the year, there are gonna be little times where it might not be quite as pristine as we like it to be. This can also happen throughout the year, not an inversion, but we can also have some smoke kind of in our air from wildfires, either up north in Idaho, coming from some of the surrounding states. And when this happens, that air quality does definitely drop. So if you're somebody who has any sort of asthma, lung issues where you need to know what the air quality is going to be, just make sure that you kind of think about that. But overall, those are going to be some of the big pros and cons that I talk to people about a lot right now. Some of these things are the same as they've been for all time. Some of them have changed due to that growth and kind of how things have changed. But overall, I still am biased. I think that this is a fantastic place to live. I do want to acknowledge this was a very short list, so this did not touch on everything. So if there is a pro, there's a con, there's a question that you have, drop a comment down below. Maybe somebody else can answer it. Shoot me an email, shoot me a text, and I'll figure out how I can send you that information. I hope this video helped you answer just at least one question. If you're still watching this, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button down below. That way you're the first to know everything you need to know about this area. But until then, watch one of these videos popping up, and I'll see you all on the next one.